The visitor under the stars. The night was unusually quiet. Liam, a humble farmer in the outskirts of a small rural town, leaned against the railing of his wooden porch. The day's labor left his body aching, but the cool evening breeze brought much-needed relief. The stars were brilliant tonight, brighter than he had seen in months, scattered across the black canvas of the sky like shimmering jewels. He sipped his coffee, savoring the rich, bitter flavor. But something felt different. There was a hum in the air. Not the familiar hum of crickets or the rustling of the wind through the trees. This was deeper, almost a vibration. Frowning, he set his mug down and stood still, listening. The ground beneath him seemed to pulse ever so slightly, as if responding to some distant, unseen force. "What the heck is that?" he muttered, grabbing a flashlight from the porch table. The beam of light cut through the darkness as he scanned the horizon. The hum grew louder, becoming a low, resonant thrum that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Then it happened. A brilliant blue light erupted in the distance, flooding the field with an otherworldly glow. Shadows stretched and danced wildly as Liam shielded his eyes. When the light dimmed slightly, he saw it. A sleek metallic ship hovering just above his cornfield. Its surface shimmered like liquid silver, pulsing faintly with an inner glow that shifted between blue and white. "What in God's name?" Liam whispered, his breath catching in his throat. He approached cautiously, the gravel crunching under his boots. The ship was unlike anything he'd ever seen, not in the movies, not in books, nowhere. Its design was almost organic, as if it had been grown rather than built. Before he could take another step, a ramp extended from the ship with a smooth mechanical grace. A soft hiss filled the air, and a figure emerged from the opening. At first, Liam thought it was some kind of mirage. The figure was tall and graceful, radiating an aura of quiet power. Her silver hair seemed to float as if untouched by gravity, cascading around her shoulders like strands of moonlight. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her large, glowing violet eyes were locked onto him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. Her attire clung to her form like liquid metal, shifting and adjusting with every step. "Greetings, human," the woman said. Her voice was melodic, almost hypnotic, yet carried a commanding tone. She descended the ramp with a regal air, her glowing eyes never leaving his. Liam stood frozen, torn between awe and fear. "You speak English," he stammered. "Our technology allows us to replicate and understand your languages," she replied, tilting her head slightly. "It is efficient." Liam blinked, trying to process what he was seeing and hearing. What are you doing here?" The woman stopped a few paces from him, her gaze calm but piercing. "I am Rihanna, a diplomat from the planet Vora. I have come to study your species. Your kind intrigues us." "Study?" Liam asked, his voice a mix of confusion and suspicion. "What do you mean, study?" Rihanna's gaze traveled over him, her expression curious. "Your species possesses unique biological structures and emotional complexities. We seek to understand them fully." Liam shifted uncomfortably under her scrutiny, unsure whether he should feel flattered or violated. That's a bit personal, don't you think?" Her eyes narrowed slightly, her tone remaining calm. "On Vora, such inquiries are standard in the pursuit of knowledge. Is your kind so secretive?" "Well, yeah," Liam said, his voice rising slightly. "We don't just go around asking people about private stuff." Rihanna frowned, her brows furrowing in frustration. "Your species is unnecessarily guarded. Knowledge should be shared, not withheld." Before Liam could respond, her gaze lowered, scanning him with clinical precision. Her expression shifted to one of puzzlement as she pointed toward his midsection. "That protrusion between your legs, what is its purpose? Is it a form of defense? A weapon, perhaps?" Liam's jaw dropped. His face turned crimson as he stepped back, holding up his hands. Whoa. That's not something you just ask someone about." Rihanna's violet eyes widened slightly. Why not? Is it not a part of your anatomy? I require clarification for my research. Liam exhaled sharply, trying to maintain his composure. Look, Earth doesn't work like that. Okay, we have boundaries. Boundaries? Rihanna echoed, her tone questioning. I see. Your species attaches emotional value to certain aspects of your anatomy. Fascinating, he groaned, running a hand through his hair. Maybe you should just head back to your ship. I don't think you're going to get the answers you're looking for here. But Rihanna didn't budge. Instead, she stepped closer, her expression softening. Liam, she said, her voice almost gentle, I do not mean to offend or intrude. I only seek understanding. Will you help me? Her earnestness caught him off guard. For a moment, he hesitated, torn between his discomfort and the genuine curiosity in her eyes. Finally, he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Fine, but we're going to do this my way. No weird questions, no staring. Got it? Rihanna nodded solemnly. Agreed. As they made their way back to the farmhouse, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet, ordinary life had just taken a turn he wasn't prepared for. Behind him, Rihanna gazed at the stars with wide-eyed wonder, her mind racing with questions yet to be answered. For both of them, this was only the beginning. Boundaries, bacon, and bonding. The morning sun rose lazily over the farm, casting golden light across the dew-soaked fields. Liam was already awake, standing by the stove as the smell of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee filled the small kitchen. He kept glancing at the hallway, half expecting his unusual guest to emerge at any moment. The events of the previous night felt surreal, but the faint hum of the alien ship parked in his field was a constant reminder. He still wasn't sure if he made the right decision letting her stay. But here they were. A soft rustling sound came from the hallway. Liam turned to see Rihanna stepping into the kitchen. In the daylight, her appearance was even more striking. Her silver hair shimmered like liquid sunlight, and her violet eyes seemed brighter, almost glowing. Good morning, she said, her melodic voice breaking the silence. Morning, Liam replied, gesturing toward the table. You hungry? Rihanna tilted her head slightly. Hungry? Oh, you mean nourishment. Yes, I require sustenance. He chuckled, setting a plate of bacon and eggs on the table. Give this a try. It's not fancy, but it'll do the job. Rihanna approached the plate cautiously, studying it with the same intensity she had used to examine him the night before. She picked up a piece of bacon delicately, sniffed it, and then took a small bite. Her eyes widened, and a faint smile played on her lips. This is remarkable, she said, taking another bite. The flavors are complex. Vorian sustenance is far less enjoyable. Glad you like it, Liam said, sitting across from her. But don't get too used to it. Farming's not all bacon and eggs. Rihanna ate in silence for a moment, then fixed him with a curious gaze. What is it you do here, Liam? What is the purpose of your existence? He nearly choked on his coffee. Purpose of my existence. That's a bit heavy for breakfast, don't you think? Rihanna's expression remained serious. On Vora, every individual's role is clear. We function as parts of a greater whole. But your species seems different. Liam set his mug down, leaning back in his chair. Well, I run this farm. Grow crops, take care of animals, fix things when they break. It's a simple life, but it keeps me busy. Rihanna nodded thoughtfully. It sounds rewarding. May I observe? He raised an eyebrow. Observe. You want to follow me around all day? Yes, she said firmly. If I am to understand your kind, I must experience your life. Liam chuckled, shaking his head. All right, suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you. The day was warm and clear, the sun shining high in the sky as Liam led Rihanna around the farm. She moved with a quiet grace, her violet eyes taking in every detail. The chickens pecking at the ground, the rows of corn swaying in the breeze. Even the old tractor parked by the barn seemed to fascinate her. "These creatures," she said, pointing to the chickens, "they provide sustenance, correct?" "Yeah," Liam replied. "Eggs mostly. Sometimes meat." Rihanna crouched down, studying the chickens intently. "They seem content. Do they not mind being used in this way?" He frowned, caught off guard by the question. "I don't think they really think about it like that. They're just chickens." "Interesting," Rihanna murmured, standing. "On Vora, all creatures are treated as equals. This concept of using others is foreign to us." "Well, on Earth, it's just how things are," Liam said, scratching the back of his neck. "I guess we've got a different perspective." Rihanna tilted her head, considering his words. Perspective. An intriguing concept. By mid-morning, they were working on repairing the barn door, which had been sagging on its hinges for weeks. Rihanna watched intently as Liam hammered nails into the wood, his movements precise and practiced. "Your hands," she said suddenly, her gaze fixed on them. "They are strong yet delicate. They create and repair. On Vora, we rely on technology for such tasks." "Well, here we rely on these," Liam said, holding up his calloused palms. "Guess that makes us a bit old-fashioned." Rihanna stepped closer, hesitating slightly. "May I?" He blinked, caught off guard. Sure." Her fingers brushed against his, cool and smooth. She turned his hand over, studying the lines and scars with intense focus. "These tell a story," she murmured. "Of labor, of perseverance. They are beautiful." Liam felt a flush creep up his neck. "They're just hands," he muttered, gently pulling away. "To you, perhaps," Rihanna said, her tone thoughtful. "But to me, they are fascinating." As the day wore on, Rihanna continued to immerse herself in farm life. She helped gather eggs from the chicken coop, her laughter ringing out when one particularly feisty hen pecked at her hand. She learned how to milk a cow, her initial discomfort giving way to genuine curiosity. Despite the physical demands, her determination never wavered. Liam found himself increasingly impressed. For someone so otherworldly, Rihanna was surprisingly adaptable. But more than that, her unfiltered curiosity and genuine desire to learn were refreshing in a way he hadn't expected. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, they were both exhausted. They sat on the porch in comfortable silence, watching the horizon. "You did good today," Liam said, breaking the quiet. "Didn't think you'd stick it out." Rihanna turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "Your life is challenging, but it is also fulfilling. I am beginning to understand why you value it." "Well, I'm glad you're learning something," he said, stretching his legs. "But don't push yourself too hard. You're not used to this." "I am stronger than I appear," Rihanna replied, a hint of pride in her voice. Liam glanced at her, his gaze lingering for a moment longer than he intended. The way the fading light caught her features, the quiet confidence in her expression, it stirred something deep within him. Clearing his throat, he looked away. "So, what's next on your agenda? More questions?" Rihanna chuckled softly. "Always. But I believe I have asked enough for one day." "Glad to hear it," Liam said with a grin. "You're keeping me on my toes." As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Liam couldn't shake the feeling that Rihanna's visit was more than just a passing curiosity. Something was shifting, something neither of them fully understood yet. The lines began to blur. The next morning, the golden light filtered through the farmhouse windows, painting the wooden floors with streaks of sunshine. Liam was up early, as usual, tending to the animals. He had just finished filling the troughs for the cows when he heard footsteps behind him. Turning, he saw Rihanna approaching with a newfound confidence, her silver hair shimmering in the daylight. "Good morning, Liam," she greeted, her melodic voice carrying a sense of purpose. "Morning," he replied, tipping his hat slightly. "You're up early. Sleep well?" "Yes," she said, nodding. "Your accommodations are Quaint, but sufficient. Today, I wish to assist you. Liam raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. You want to help with farm work? Yes, she replied firmly. If I am to understand your world, I must experience it. He chuckled, shaking his head. All right, suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you. Their first task was feeding the pigs, and it didn't take long for Rihanna's curiosity to shine through. As Liam handed her a bucket of slop, she wrinkled her nose, holding it at arm's length. This substance, she observed, her tone laced with mild distaste. It smells unpleasant. Welcome to farming, Liam said with a grin. It's not all sunshine and roses. Rihanna approached the pig pen cautiously, the hungry animal snorting eagerly as she tipped the bucket into the trough. The thick mixture landed with a wet splat, and the pigs descended on it with gusto. Rihanna stepped back quickly, her violet eyes wide with surprise. They consumed this with enthusiasm, she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. Do all your creatures eat such substances? Not all, Liam replied, laughing. But pigs aren't picky. They'll eat just about anything. Rihanna tilted her head, watching the animals closely. Your world is so messy. On Vora, sustenance is delivered through nutrient chambers. No waste. No chaos. Sounds efficient, Liam said, wiping his hands on his jeans. But maybe a little sterile. Sterile, she echoed, curiosity flickering in her gaze. It means lifeless, he explained. Out here, the mess is part of the connection. You're part of something bigger, nature, life. It's messy, sure, but it's real. Rihanna considered his words, her expression softening. Perhaps there is value in this mess. As the morning wore on, they moved on to the next task, repairing a broken fence near the cornfield. Rihanna watched intently as Liam worked, her eyes tracing the movements of his hands as he hammered nails into the wood. Your hands, she said suddenly, her voice filled with wonder. They are remarkable. On Vora, we rely on machines for such tasks. But you create and repair with your own strength. They're just hands, Liam said, brushing off her comment. Nothing special. To you. Perhaps, Rihanna replied, stepping closer. But to me, they are fascinating. May I examine them? He hesitated for a moment, then held out his hands. Her cool fingers brushed against his palms as she studied the lines and calluses, her touch light but deliberate. These marks, she murmured, tracing a scar near his thumb. They tell a story. Of labor. Of perseverance. Liam felt a flush rise in his cheeks. It's just work, he muttered, pulling his hands back gently. Nothing poetic about it. But there is, Rihanna said softly. Your hands are a testament to your resilience. By midday, the sun hung high in the sky, and the pair took a break under the shade of a large oak tree. Liam handed Rihanna a canteen of water, which she accepted with a small nod. Harder than it looks, isn't it? He teased, wiping sweat from his brow. It is demanding, she admitted, taking a sip, but rewarding. I am beginning to understand why you value this life. Liam leaned back against the tree trunk, gazing out at the fields. It's not much, but it's mine. Keeps me grounded. Rihanna studied him for a moment, her gaze unwavering. You speak of connection often. Is that what keeps you here? The connection to this land? Yeah, he said after a pause. But it's more than that. It's about the people you share it with. Family, friends. That's what makes it all worth it. She tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. You place great importance on bonds. On Vora, such connections are rare. We prioritize efficiency over emotion. That sounds lonely, Liam said, frowning. Perhaps, she admitted, but it is practical. Emotions complicate things. Yeah, they do, Liam said with a chuckle. But they're what make life worth living. By evening, the day's work was done, and the two sat on the porch, watching the sunset. The sky was ablaze with hues of orange and pink, the horizon stretching endlessly before them. "You've had a busy day," Liam said, glancing at Rihanna. "Didn't think you'd stick it out." "I am more resilient than you give me credit for," she replied with a faint smile. "Your life is enlightening." "Well, I'm glad you're learning something," Liam said, leaning back in his chair. "But don't push yourself too hard. You're not used to this." "I am stronger than I appear," Rihanna said, a hint of pride in her voice. Liam chuckled, his gaze lingering on her longer than he intended. There was something captivating about her, the way she absorbed everything, with such unfiltered curiosity, the way her confidence shone through even in unfamiliar situations. Clearing his throat, he turned his attention back to the horizon. "So, what's next? More questions?" "Always," Rihanna said with a soft laugh. "But for now, I believe I have learned enough." The comfortable silence returned, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves in the evening breeze. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that Rihanna's presence was changing something within him, something he couldn't quite define. As the first stars began to appear in the sky, he wondered if she felt it too. For the first time in a long while, Liam found himself looking forward to what tomorrow might bring. Questions of the heart. The next morning dawned with the same golden light streaming through the windows of the farmhouse. Rihanna joined Liam in the kitchen, her movements more relaxed than before. She was dressed in another of his spare shirts and jeans, the outfit hanging loosely on her slender frame. Despite the awkward fit, she carried herself with the same regal air that seemed to come naturally to her. "Good morning, Liam," she said, her voice as calm and melodic as always. "Morning," he replied, handing her a plate of eggs and toast. "Ready for another day of farm life?" She nodded, taking her seat at the table. "I wish to continue my observations. Your world fascinates me." Liam smirked, shaking his head. "You sure you're not getting more than you bargained for? Farming's not exactly glamorous." "Perhaps not," Rihanna said, tilting her head thoughtfully. "But there is a beauty in its simplicity, and in its connections." Her words gave Liam pause. Over the past few days, he'd grown used to her curiosity and her endless questions, but there was something different about her tone now. Something softer, almost hesitant. He decided not to press, instead gesturing toward the door. "Well, we've got a fence to mend and a tractor that won't start. Hope you're ready to get your hands dirty." The day began with repairing another section of the fence. Rihanna watched closely as Liam worked, her violet eyes following the rhythmic movement of his hammer striking nails into the wood. "You seem more at ease today," Liam remarked, glancing at her. "I am becoming accustomed to your world," she replied. "Your methods, your routines, they are grounding." "Grounding, huh?" he said with a chuckle. "That's one way to put it." As she handed him another nail, her fingers brushed against his. The contact was brief, but enough to make him glance at her. She seemed unfazed, her expression focused on the task at hand. Still, Liam couldn't help but feel a strange warmth in the moment, a quiet connection he couldn't quite explain. By mid-afternoon, they were working on the tractor. Rihanna crouched beside him, her silver hair catching the sunlight as she examined the machine's intricate components. "Your technology is rudimentary," she said, her tone neutral. "Yet it is effective." "Not everything needs to be fancy to get the job done," Liam replied, tightening a bolt. "Sometimes simpler is better." Rihanna tilted her head, considering his words. "You value simplicity, yet your emotions and connections are far from simple." Liam paused, wiping his hands on a rag. "That's life for you. Complicated as hell, but it's what makes it worth living." She studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. "You speak often of connections. Are they truly so important to your kind?" "Yeah," he said, nodding. "They're what keep us going. Family, friends, love. It's all about the people you share your life with." "Love," Rihanna repeated, the word seeming foreign on her tongue. "This bond you describe, it is a choice. Sometimes, Liam said, leaning back against the tractor. But other times, it just happens. You meet someone, and it feels like they're meant to be in your life. You don't always get to choose. Her gaze lingered on him, a faint crease forming between her brows. And have you experienced this? This feeling? Liam swallowed, suddenly aware of how close she was. Her violet eyes held his, searching for something he wasn't sure he could give. I don't know, he admitted, his voice quieter than usual. Maybe. Rihanna nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. Your emotions are difficult to understand, but they are intriguing. As the day wound down, the two sat on the porch again, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, the colors reflected in Rihanna's glowing eyes. You've learned a lot these past few days, Liam said, breaking the silence. Yes, she replied. But there is still much I do not understand. Like what? He asked, glancing at her. She hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of the wooden armrest. Your emotions, your bonds. They seem to guide so much of your actions, yet they are intangible. How does one define something so abstract? You don't, Liam said, shrugging. You just feel it. It's not something you can put into words. It's about trust, closeness, wanting to share your life with someone. Rihanna turned to him, her gaze steady. And do you feel this with me? The question caught him off guard. He stared at her, his heart pounding in his chest. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, we've only known each other for a few days. Time is irrelevant, she said softly. Connection transcends such limitations. Liam looked away, his thoughts a whirlwind. She wasn't wrong, but the idea scared him. She was an alien, a being from a completely different world, with her own culture, her own ways of thinking. And yet there was something about her that felt right. That night, as Liam lay in bed, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Her questions, her curiosity, the way she looked at him. It was all so overwhelming, yet so fascinating. He didn't know what to make of it, but he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her. In the guest room, Rihanna sat cross-legged on the bed, staring out the window at the stars. Her mind was equally restless. Humans were unlike anything she'd ever encountered, their emotions complex and unpredictable. And Liam. Liam was a puzzle she couldn't stop trying to solve. For both of them, the lines between curiosity and connection were beginning to blur. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain: neither of their lives would ever be the same. A bridge between two worlds. The next morning, Rihanna stepped outside to join Liam, who was already in the barn feeding the animals. The familiar sounds of the farm. The clucking of chickens, the snorting of pigs, and the occasional creak of the windmill created a rhythm she was slowly beginning to recognize. It was chaotic, yes, but it was also alive in a way her world never had been. Good morning, Rihanna said, her melodic voice carrying easily over the sounds of the barn. Morning, Liam replied, glancing over his shoulder. You're getting good at this whole early rising thing. Adaptation is essential, she said with a faint smile. I wish to assist you again today. Liam smirked, handing her a basket. All right, let's start with gathering eggs. Careful with the hens this time. They've got a mean streak. Rihanna tilted her head. I have learned from our previous encounter. I will not provoke them. The morning tasks passed more smoothly than Liam expected. Rihanna's initial hesitation had given way to a quiet confidence as she moved through the motions of farm life. She even managed to retrieve eggs from the coop without incident, earning a teasing, "Well, look at you. A real pro," from Liam. But her curiosity remained insatiable. As they walked back to the barn, her gaze fell on the scarecrow standing in the field, its straw-filled body dressed in old overalls and a floppy hat. This construct, she said, pointing to it, what purpose does it serve? Liam chuckled. That's a scarecrow. It's supposed to keep birds away from the crops. Does it succeed? She asked, studying it with an analytical eye. Not really, Liam admitted. But it's tradition. Been around forever. Rihanna tilted her head. Your species holds great value in traditions, even ineffective ones. It's not just about the effectiveness, Liam said. It's about the connection to the past, to the people who came before us. Her expression softened. Your world is rooted in history. Ours seeks only progress. Maybe that's why you're here, Liam said with a shrug. To learn how to balance the two. Later that day, Liam showed Rihanna how to use the irrigation system. She was fascinated by the network of pipes and pumps that delivered water to the crops, her violet eyes following the flow of water as it trickled through the soil. Your methods are ingenious, she said, crouching down to touch the damp earth. Yet they seem fragile. Yeah, they're not perfect, Liam admitted, but we make do with what we have. That's kind of a human thing, figuring stuff out as we go. Improvisation, Rihanna said, the word rolling off her tongue as if she were testing it. A concept foreign to my people. On Vora, everything is planned meticulously. Sounds exhausting, Liam said, grinning. Sometimes the best things come from just winging it. Winging it? She echoed, her brow furrowing. It means doing something without a plan, he explained. Taking a leap and figuring it out on the way down. Rihanna considered this, her expression thoughtful. Your approach is chaotic, but it holds a certain appeal. By the time evening rolled around, they were back on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was a breathtaking blend of gold and crimson, the first stars beginning to twinkle in the growing darkness. You've been quiet today, Liam said, glancing at her. Something on your mind? Rihanna nodded slowly. Your world continues to surprise me. Its imperfections are its greatest strengths. That's one way to put it, Liam said with a chuckle. She turned to him, her gaze steady. You mentioned yesterday that connections make life worth living. I believe I am beginning to understand. Yeah, he said, raising an eyebrow. Yes, she replied. Your willingness to share your life with me, despite our differences, has shown me something I did not anticipate. Liam swallowed, unsure of how to respond. And what's that? That connection is not bound by logic or efficiency, she said softly. It is something more. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Liam looked at her, his heart pounding. Rihanna, She raised a hand, stopping him gently. Let me finish. On Vora, emotions are seen as obstacles. They are controlled, subdued. But here, with you, I have felt something I cannot suppress. It is unsettling, but also exhilarating. Liam exhaled slowly, his mind racing. Rihanna, I don't know what to say. This isn't exactly a normal situation. Normality is irrelevant, she said firmly. What matters is the bond we are forming. He stared at her, his chest tightening with a mix of fear and hope. And what do you want from that bond? To understand it, she said, her voice steady. To nurture it, to see where it leads. Liam looked away, the weight of her words sinking in. This isn't going to be easy, you know. We're from two different worlds, literally. I am not asking for ease, she said. I am asking for honesty. For you to allow this bond to grow naturally, without fear. He turned back to her, meeting her gaze. In her glowing violet eyes, he saw not just curiosity, but something deeper, something he couldn't ignore. All right, he said finally. But let's take it slow, okay? Rihanna nodded, a faint smile gracing her lips. As you wish, Liam. That night, as they sat in the quiet of the porch, the stars above them sparkling like distant beacons, both of them felt the first true stirrings of something profound. It was no longer just curiosity driving their interactions, but a deeper connection neither of them could fully understand yet. The boundaries of logic and tradition, of biology and culture, seemed less important in the face of this newfound bond. For Rihanna, it was the first time she allowed herself to feel, to embrace the chaos and beauty of emotion. For Liam, it was an awakening, a realization that sometimes the most extraordinary connections are the ones you never see coming. As the cool night breeze rustled the fields and the faint hum of Rihanna's ship echoed in the distance, they sat side by side, silently wondering what tomorrow would bring. Together, they were bridging two worlds, one moment at a time. The seeds of trust. The next morning brought a crisp breeze and the promise of another busy day. Liam was already outside, fixing a busted gate near the barn, when Rihanna joined him. Her silver hair caught the morning light, and her violet eyes seemed brighter, more curious than ever. "You're up early," Liam said, glancing at her with a grin. "I figured you'd take it easy today after all the work you've been doing." "I do not require rest," she replied, her tone light. "And I wish to continue learning." "Well," Liam said, gesturing toward the gate, "this thing's been giving me trouble for weeks. Want to help?" Rihanna stepped closer, observing the gate with a focused expression. "Show me what to do." Liam handed her a wrench and explained the basics of tightening the bolts. Her movements were careful, precise, and oddly graceful as she worked. Watching her, Liam couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. "You're getting the hang of this," he said after a few minutes. Rihanna glanced at him, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Your tasks are challenging, but I find them satisfying. Each completed task brings a sense of accomplishment." "Welcome to farming," Liam said with a chuckle. "It's a lot of hard work, but it's worth it." As the day wore on, the two moved from task to task. Rihanna helped mend a section of the chicken coop, her initial apprehension around the animals fading as she grew more comfortable. She even managed to carry a bale of hay to the barn, though Liam quickly stepped in when it became clear the load was too heavy for her slender frame. "You don't have to push yourself so hard," he said, taking the hay from her and setting it down. "I wish to experience your life fully," she insisted, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Even the difficulties." Liam shook his head, a small smile on his lips. "You're stubborn, you know that." Rihanna tilted her head, her expression curious. "Stubborn? Is this a compliment?" "Depends on how you look at it," Liam replied, laughing. "But yeah, I guess it is." By late afternoon, they found themselves sitting on the porch, sipping cold water as the sun began its descent. The day's work had left them both tired, but it was a satisfying kind of exhaustion. "You've come a long way in just a few days," Liam said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Most people wouldn't last this long." "Your life is difficult, but it is also fulfilling," Rihanna said, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I understand now why you value it so deeply." "It's not just the work," Liam said, leaning back in his chair. "It's the connection to the land, to the people you share it with." Rihanna turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "These connections you speak of, they are becoming clearer to me. I feel something, a pull I cannot explain." Liam swallowed, his heart skipping a beat. "What kind of pull?" "To you," she said simply, her violet eyes meeting his. "I wish to understand this bond. It is unlike anything I have encountered before." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Liam looked at her, unsure of how to respond. The honesty in her gaze was disarming, leaving him feeling exposed. "Rihanna," he began, his voice hesitant. "This, whatever this is, it's complicated. You're from another world. I'm just a guy with a farm. I don't know how this could ever work." "Complications are irrelevant," she said firmly. "What matters is the connection." He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "It's not that simple." "It is," she insisted, leaning closer. "Your species places such value on emotions, on bonds, yet you hesitate when they present themselves. Why?" "Because," Liam paused, struggling to find the right words. "Because I don't want to screw it up." Because I'm scared. Rihanna studied him for a moment, then reached out, her cool fingers brushing against his hand. Fear is natural, but it should not prevent you from exploring what could be. Her touch sent a jolt through him, and for a moment, the world seemed to fall away. All he could see were her violet eyes, glowing softly in the fading light. That evening, as the stars began to appear in the sky, Liam and Rihanna sat together on the porch, their silence filled with unspoken questions. For Liam, the boundaries he had always taken for granted were beginning to blur, replaced by a strange and undeniable pull toward the alien woman beside him. For Rihanna, the concept of connection, a bond forged not through logic or duty, but through emotion, was becoming clearer. She didn't fully understand it yet, but she was willing to embrace the uncertainty. As the cool night breeze swept across the fields, Liam finally broke the silence. Rihanna, if we're going to figure this out, we got to take it slow. No rushing, no assumptions. Deal, she said softly, her faint smile returning. It was a tentative step, but it was a step nonetheless. Together, they were navigating uncharted territory, guided only by trust and the growing bond between them. Neither knew where the journey would lead, but for the first time, they weren't afraid to find out. A new chapter. The days turned into weeks, and Rihanna became an integral part of Liam's world. What had begun as curiosity on both their parts had grown into something deeper, something neither of them fully understood but both felt strongly. Her presence on the farm was no longer an anomaly. It felt natural, as though she had always been there. One crisp autumn evening, they found themselves on the hill overlooking the farm. The sky was a canvas of gold and crimson, the sun casting long shadows over the fields below. Rihanna stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her silver hair shimmering in the fading light. "You're quiet tonight," Liam said, standing a few steps behind her. "What's on your mind?" She turned to face him, her violet eyes reflecting the fiery hues of the sunset. "I have been reflecting on my purpose," she said softly. "When I came to Earth, it was with the intent to study your kind, to gather data. But now I see that my journey was never about knowledge. It was about connection." Liam stepped closer, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets. "And what have you learned?" "That connection is not bound by logic or practicality," she said. "It is messy, unpredictable, and deeply human. And yet, it is the most profound experience I have ever known." Her words struck a chord in Liam. He looked down at the ground, then back up at her. "You've changed, you know. When you first got here, you were all about facts and data. Now you're different." "You have changed me," she said, her voice steady. "You have shown me a world I could not have imagined. A world where emotions are not weaknesses but strengths. Where connection is not a distraction but a purpose." Liam swallowed hard, his heart pounding. "Rihanna, She raised a hand, silencing him gently. "Let me finish," she said, stepping closer. "You once told me that the best things in life come from taking a leap, from winging it, as you say. I believe this bond we have is one of those things." Liam exhaled slowly, his mind racing. He had tried to keep his distance, to rationalize his feelings, but her words had broken through every wall he had put up. He couldn't deny what he felt any longer. "Rihanna," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I don't know what's going to happen next. You've got a whole other world waiting for you, a life I can't even begin to understand. But I know one thing, I don't want to lose you." Her expression softened, and for the first time, Liam saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. "Nor do I wish to lose you, Liam. You have shown me that life is not about duty alone. It is about the bonds we form, the connections we nurture." She took another step closer, reaching out to take his hand. Her fingers were cool against his, but the touch sent a warmth through him that he couldn't explain. "What now?" he asked, his voice trembling. Rihanna smiled, a faint but genuine smile that lit up her face. We create a new story, one that bridges our worlds. Together. In the days that followed, Rihanna reached out to her people, sharing what she had learned about humanity. Her reports were no longer clinical analyses, but heartfelt accounts of connection, resilience, and the beauty of imperfection. At first, the Vorian Council was skeptical, but Rihanna's passion and conviction eventually won them over. Plans for collaboration between Earth and Vora began to take shape, with Rihanna acting as a liaison between the two worlds. Her ship, once a symbol of her isolation, became a bridge, a beacon of hope for what was possible when differences were embraced rather than feared. For Liam, life on the farm changed in ways he could never have imagined. Rihanna became his partner, not just in work but in life. Together, they faced the challenges of blending their worlds, finding common ground where none had existed before. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars, Rihanna leaned her head against Liam's shoulder. The cool autumn air carried the faint scent of earth and hay, and the sky above was a tapestry of shimmering lights. "You once told me that life is about the connections we make," she said softly. "I didn't understand it then, but now I do. It's about finding the people, or perhaps the one person, who makes your world feel complete." Liam smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "And here I thought I was just some guy with a farm." "To me," Rihanna said, looking up at him, "you are the universe." As the stars twinkled above them, Liam and Rihanna knew that their journey was far from over. There would be challenges, obstacles, and uncertainties, but they would face them together. Their bond, forged against all odds, was proof that love, in all its messy, unpredictable glory, was the greatest discovery of all.